call of the Board of Education, please.
I'm doing it on paper because I left my list in my office. Mr. Brent Manning.
Present.
Mr. Scott Murphy.
Present.
Ms. Lauren Kitzinger.
Present.
Ms. Kelly Muse.
Here.
Ms. Jennifer Dacey.
Present.
Mr. Carr Ipoh.
He is a representative for tonight from the board at the New Bern High School football game.
And Ms. Naomi Clark. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, I would ask if there be any amendments to the board's agenda. If not, I would ask for a motion that we adopt the November 16th, 2023 board meeting agenda.
So move.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by the raising of your right hand, and motion passes. At this time, I ask Ms. Kelly Muse to review our safety procedures.
Okay. In the event of a fire emergency, we will split the room in half. The right side of the room will exit out the door to my left, and the left side of the room will exit out the door to my right, which would be that one back there and that one over there. Those moving to my right will go out into the parking lot towards the bagel shop, and those moving to my left will go out to the digital sign near Glen Burnie Street and get as far away from the building until the fire department comes and clears the building.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, we would like to recognize any elected officials, dignitaries, and leaders present in our audience tonight. Do we have any elected officials? If so, please stand. Craven County Schools Principal of the Year, Ms. Caitlin Watson, Grover C. Fields Middle School. Craven County Schools Teacher of the Year, Ms. Nardi Roughton, Creekside Elementary. Military Liaison, Ms. Leepa Palmer. Craven County Schools Military Liaison Counselor, Ms. Valerie Nasser. Partners in Education Executive Director, Darlene Brown. Principals and staff. If you would please stand, principals and staff, so we can recognize and honor you tonight. Special guest a lot with us tonight is a class of civics from the New Bern High School on assignment. We welcome all of you here tonight. Would you make them feel welcome? Retired educators, if you would please stand so we can recognize you tonight. All right. At this time, I call upon our board attorney, Mr. Brian Gatchell, to offer our invocation for our meeting tonight.
Board members, if you'll please pray with me. Holy God, may we seek you this day, that you would allow yourself to be found. May we call upon you, that you would hear our prayers. All you ask of us is that we forsake our wicked ways, behavior that tears down, wounds, and causes pain intended to demean and dehumanize another. You require that we forsake our unrighteous thoughts, thinking that is not just contrary to your will, but brazenly opposed to your love for all creation. Let us each return to you, setting aside both our shame and our pride, that you would have compassion upon us. Let us come back into right relationship with you, where we will receive the abundance of your pardon. It is clear that your thoughts are not our thoughts. Your ways are not our ways. For sure as the heavens are above the earth, so are your ways higher than our ways. Your thoughts exceed well beyond our own. With humility, then, we offer ourselves, our thoughts, our ways, and our very beings to your service this day. In the magnificence of your name we dare to pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. At this time, I would ask board member Ms. Dacey if she would lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, I would call and ask if Vice Chairman, Mr. Scott Murphy, to provide a summary of the information and presentation shared at our morning work session that began at 8:30 this morning.
Oh, 1 second, let me find it. All right, we read Mr. Roy Cooper's proclamation that November is Career Development Month, and November 15th is Career Development Day. The board voted to approve the contracts for Alexia and Power Up. The board voted to approve class size waivers for 6 elementary schools. We heard about grading practices for the first quarter of the year, and all students listen up. We voted down the 50, and so you can no longer get your grades bumped up to a 50 in your first half of your first quarter. You get what you earn from this point on. The board discussed about alternative education plans starting for next semester. The discipline statistics for the first 9 weeks were reviewed and compared to the same period last year. The board voted to approve 5 budget amendments. We talked about the cleaning for Havelock Elementary School and a chiller replacement for Havelock High School. The board selected a student-designed holiday card to be used by the board and selected a second card to be used by the superintendent. 19 policies received a first reading and 11 policies received a second reading. And that's all.
All right, thank you, sir. And this time, the Board of Education will receive public input. And as we begin our public input tonight, we want to thank you all for coming out to speak to the Board of Education. Speakers will address the board from the speaker's podium at the front of the room and will begin their remarks by stating their name and address. Speakers are expected to be civil in their language and presentation. Public comment is not intended to require the board to answer any impromptu questions. However, the board, in accordance with its policy, will include a discussion of public input, at which time the board may discuss issues raised in the public comment portion of the meeting. The Board of Education is here to listen to those who have signed up, and our speakers will be called upon one at a time, and will have up to 5 minutes for speaking. If you are still speaking when the alarms sound, please take your seat. There is to be no comments, sidebar conversations, or hand clapping from the audience, as that inhibits our ability to listen to the speaker at the podium. The decorum for a public meeting is to be polite, civil, and respectful. I ask that your comments to the board be focused, polite, to not include any personal attacks or name-calling, and to be directed to the board. Thank you for your cooperation, and with that, I ask Vice Chairman Mr. Scott Murphy if he'll begin calling our citizens who have signed up to speak for 5 minutes.
We have 4 for today, and the first one is Mr. Alan Hart.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to address the board. As I indicated, my name is Alan Harrop, and I live at 909 Cara Drive. That's down in Fairfield Harbor. The purpose of my presentation this evening is to present a resolution on a topic that we believe is very important to the citizens of Craven County. We believe that it's our obligation as your constituents to make sure that you understand the things that we would like to see improved with the Craven County school system. The following resolutions are presented with the endorsement of the Craven County GOP Executive Committee, the 20th GOP Precinct, and the Craven County Republican Men's Club. We are confident that they reflect the views of a large majority of the citizens of Craven County. These issues, as fostered in the Craven County Public Schools, as we understand it, undermine the values and principles of this country, as well as fostering racial hostility and emotional distress. We believe that the Board of Education has the responsibility and duty to take whatever action necessary to remove these issues and topics as recommended by these resolutions. We believe that these topics are better defined as indoctrination and not instruction. We would appreciate a written response to these resolutions at the appropriate time. First resolution has to do with climate change. The Earth's climate has always been variable and subject to change, as evidenced by the 8 ice age and warming cycles that have occurred previously. Climate changes and variations are primarily due to natural causes and are not under man's control. The evidence that mankind is causing current and future climate change is based on computer models that have consistently failed to accurately predict climate change over the past several decades. There is considerable debate in the scientific community about the extent and actual causes of climate change. There is no evidence of an actual climate emergency. The best protection against any climate change is human ingenuity and an availability of plentiful and affordable energy. Therefore, be it resolved that the climate change as, quote, settled science, unquote, should not be taught in the Craven County schools. Rather, all sides of the debate about climate change and its causes should be addressed equally and objectively. Second, that describing the current climate situation as a catastrophe and looming existential threat shall be stopped and creates unnecessary emotional distress in younger children. And lastly, that climate change instruction and discussions should be limited to the science classes for those grades where science instruction is part of the curriculum. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address the board.
Mr. Robert Griswold?
Griswold, yes. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Robert Griswold, 4807 Delph Drive, New Bern. And thank you again for allowing us to speak. The resolution about removing identity focus. I will read the resolution quickly. Whereas people should be judged on the content of their character, not on the group identity, skin color, gender, or other superficial factors, and whereas successful societies like America have all encouraged achievement, pro-social, moral, and values, and whereas there is no factual basis that America is systematically racist, and be it resolved that all discussions, instructions that undermines these principles shall be prohibited from all curricula in all grades in the Craven County schools. And be it resolved that all books, pamphlets, magazines, etc. undermining these principles shall be removed from the libraries in the Craven County public schools. And be it resolved that any teacher, administrator violating these prohibitions shall be subjected to appropriate disciplinary actions. I ask you to please stop trying to incorporate the next new socialist Marxist idea into our classroom and remove it from wherever and under whatever title it is to be found. We have seen too many attempts to devalue our society, whether through critical race theory, which was once an obscure academic concept, or contemporary education psychology, or identity-safe classrooms, or identity-centered learning. Regardless of the title given, our education system continues to decline as we put mistitled Band-Aids on the course structure. At the same time, our world adversaries add fundamentally structured educational principles to their growing children. Alan Bloom, in his book, The Closing of the American Mind, sees the staging for elimination of absolute truth and the concepts of relativism. Your truth versus my truth. We as a society need to get back to teaching strong fundamentals whether in language, science, math, and especially the real unvarnished history of our country. When will we teach our students about taxes, cooking, insurance, home maintenance, social etiquette, personal finance, public speaking, car maintenance, and stress management, to name a few things? I have a grandson who went off to the University of Buffalo, and after his first semester, he joined the U.S. Marines. He went to boot camp, went to infantry training and intelligence training. Now back at the university, he is frustrated that his fellow students never learn to work together for common goals. The above resolution is asking you to get back to fundamentals and eliminate those programs that are intended to divide us. Let us remember that our U.S. currency, at least the $1 bill, and by the way, the Sacagawea dollar, each contain the Latin words e pluribus unum, out of many, one. Thank you for your time.
Glenn Fink.
I'm Glenn Fink, live at 646 Goose Creek Road here in New Bern. I have the third resolution, the title being Removing Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, DEI, from a primary focus of our schools. Again, the principles and goals of DEI are antithetical to the founding principles of the United States of America, specifically that equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome, and the principles and goals of DEI are consistent with Marxism, which has never proven successful in any society, and successful societies are based on principles of meritocracy, where advancement is based on achievement, skill level, and not membership in a specific group. And therefore, be it resolved, the school instruction and recognition of achievement shall be based on demonstrated skill and achievement, that all students shall be encouraged to achieve at the highest level they can and be graded accordingly, regardless of the achievements of other students. That all students shall be encouraged to achieve at the highest level they can and be graded, okay, I'm sorry, I just read through that one again. Synopsis of this is a DEI is a Marxist-based principle that seeks equal outcome rather than equal opportunity, which is a founding American principle. Fosters racial distrust, hostility, and society not based on merit. So now I'm going to go back and do a little history lesson. About 3 years ago, there was a contract done with the Intercultural Development Research Association to contract to do an equity audit. This will be the 5th time that I will have approached the board to get information about a report from that audit, what was reported, what have we done, and all those sorts of things. The dates that I've asked for was May 2021, July 2021, June 2022, April 2023, and tonight, November 2024. And so I just want to be as specific about my request. Now, I will say that only 3 of the current board were here on the board at that time. 2 of them are not here tonight. But that doesn't mean that the board's work doesn't continue. So what I'm asking for is a copy of the contract documents with this Intercultural Development Research Association, a copy of all the related expenditures for this effort that could be included, including grant funds, copy of the report submitted to this board, by Intercultural Development Research Association, meaning what did they say to do, and then documentation related to our board review and what we've done with that and what differences it make and how do we know what the difference has been. Summary of where we stand right now on this whole thing. It went completely silent after it was talked about, and there's online, there's definitely PowerPoint slides, and if you archives go back 3 years. So it's related because that work was work that, again, this resolution would not agree with. Thank you.
Paul Hill.
My name is Paul Hill. I'm from 914 Crooked Creek Drive here in Newark. Thank you for the opportunity to present a proposed resolution. The subject of this resolution is instructions concerning gender identity. Whereas humans, similar to all animal species, are born with male or female, that identification is determined at birth, at their physical characteristics, and it is necessary to be identified so that the person can have a healthy life using that gender. Whereas the instructions that gender is fluid and subject to the decisions of the child is a damaging to mental health and the happiness of the child. Whereas parents have the absolute right to be informed of any expression by the child to change their gender. Therefore, be it resolved, any instructions that gender can be selected by choice rather than assigned by birth shall be prohibited at all grade levels. Be it resolved that the teachers, counselors, and administrators shall notify the parents of a child who is expressing or demonstrating a wish to change gender be referred to the parent prior to being referred to any counselor or person authorized to deal with the issue. And finally, be it resolved that all children shall be addressed on school premise by their appropriate pronoun consistent with their birth gender. Thank you for the time of being able to present this.
That is all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And with that, we will take a 10-minute break. I call this meeting back to order. Next in our agenda is finance, and with that, I invite Ms. Altman to come up.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
I have Josh Purvis with me from the auditing firm of Forvis, and he will present to you tonight, for your information, the results of our fiscal year 2023 audit. Okay.
Thank you so much, Denise. I think we're going to queue up the slide deck, hopefully, as I'm getting set up here. That one should work just fine. Awesome. Thank you so much. As Denise mentioned, my name is Josh Prager, and I'm Assurance Senior Manager with Forvis. We're here to present the audit results of the financial statement and compliance audit of Craven County Schools for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2023. We're presenting financials that were submitted to the state by the October 31st deadline and approved by the state on November 9th. We'll start with a quick overview of the agenda. So we'll start with a discussion of the audit results. We'll then move to a review of the communication to the board and the financial highlights, and then we'll conclude with a review of the compliance audit. Next slide, please. So we'll start with the audit results. So the purpose of an audit and substantially all the work that contributes to it is to enable us as auditors to issue an opinion on the financial statements. We've included an excerpt of our audit opinion here, which is considered an unmodified or a clean opinion. Effectively, this is the opinion that users of the financial statements would like to receive and gives the users an indication of reasonable assurance that the information in the statements are materially accurate. The full audit report can be found on page 1 of the act, for which you guys have on your tables. We can move on. Next, we'll move through a review of the required communications to the board. So there are various aspects of the audit process that we are required to communicate. The first of which would be any significant estimates or sensitive disclosures. We've identified these as being the useful lives of depreciable assets and the proportionate share of the net pension and net OPEB liabilities for the retirement plans. Another item we would communicate is any difficulties or disagreements we had with management during the course of the audit. Thankfully, we have none to report. Next, any uncorrected misstatements. So if there were any misstatements which we identified during the course of the audit that management elected not to record, we would present them here. We also have no uncorrected misstatements. Additionally, representations made by management. So management makes various representations to us during the course of the audit regarding transactions and activity of the board. Our required communication report will include the signed management representation letter in case anyone on the board would like to review the representations given to us during the course of the audit. And then lastly, the adoption of GASB 96. So the board was required to adopt a new accounting standard this year, which would require them to record right-to-use capital assets and subscription liabilities for IT arrangements, which historically would not have been recorded on the full accrual financial statements. Management identified 3 contracts which were required to be recorded in accordance with adoption of this new standard. Any question there before we move on to financial information? Sure, we can flip on. So next we'll review financial highlights. We present these in graphical form, but obviously you have the ACFRs at your desk. If there's any specific questions on the ACFR that you'd like for me to answer, I'd be happy to do that as well. The first slide shows governmental funding sources for each of the prior 3 years. So as you can see in the red bar, a little small for you guys, but state funding is easily the largest funding source of the board. So that increased by $3.1 million as compared to the prior year. This increase related to a $3.9 million increase in the state public school fund program. County and other funding, which is shown in the gray bar, decreased by $114,000. This decrease was primarily due to a decrease in county general appropriations of $64,000. Next, federal funding, which is shown in the black bar, increased compared to the prior year by $3 million. So, it's harder to see size-wise, but you'll see a trend of an increase of federal funding over the past 3 years, which is related to additional ESSER funding. Of your total federal funding, there was $21.8 million this year. That's going to be obviously going away as ESSER as ESSER moves on, and so the board's going to have to find ways to make cuts or make decisions on how to operate going forward without that funding source in a few years. Any questions on revenues before we flip? All right, go ahead, you can advance the slide. Thank you. So this slide gives you a visual representation of where monies are being spent each year. You'll notice that the board spent around 71% on instructional services, with the remaining 29% being spent on other operational services. The breakdown between instructional and other is based on the NCDPI chart of accounts. You see a little bit of a dip in the allocation of instructional in the current year, which is driven really by a significant amount of spend in other operational support for the HVAC projects, which were covered by ESSER funds. If you take out those HVAC projects, instructional spend compared to prior years is pretty consistent. There's not a real big change there. So kind of a one-off large project that was done. You can advance to the next slide, please. So this slide details fund balance for the prior 3 years for the general fund. The red bar in the graph represents total fund balance. So total fund balance has increased by $490,000 as compared to the prior year. The gray bar represents the portion of fund balance which is considered available for appropriation. So that takes total fund balance and subtracts amounts that are considered non-spendable and also restricted for certain receivables. Available for appropriation fund balance increased by $788,000, consistent with the increase in total fund balance. The black bar represents unassigned fund balance in the general fund. So unassigned fund balance actually decreased by $2.7 billion. Unassigned fund balance should really be of particular note because that's kind of what's left over after assignments and restrictions for other matters. As we mentioned with ESSER funds, the board's going to have to be really prudent to ensure that you can maintain fund balance with this ESSER funds rolling off and obviously a decrease in unassigned fund balance this year. It should be noted there's no state mandated threshold for fund balance at the LEA level. Any questions here before we move on? Next slide, please. So lastly, here's a quick snapshot of the school food service fund. Just a couple quick important highlights to take away here. The fund is in a cash position of $5.6 million and had net income of $360,000 in the current year. Net position in the fund actually increased due to the income generated. Next slide, please. So next, we'll kind of move on to a quick review of our compliance audit. So we're required to assess internal controls and compliance in accordance with government auditing standards. During our testing, we noted one internal control finding which was required to be reported. That was related to a lack of reconciliation and proper recording of balance sheet accounts in the school food service fund. So the issue was caused primarily by the implementation of the Titan school nutrition system and its lack of integration with the existing financial reporting system. As a result, meal sales were not being appropriately recorded, and that required material audit adjustments by our team when the audit took place. It should be noted that finance and school nutrition departments have worked with the software vendor on a fix for this going forward. And Ms. Altman, if the board has any specific questions on what the response is and how this is going to be corrected, Ms. Altman's happy to answer those questions at the conclusion of the slide deck. Before we move on, any questions with regards to the nature of the finding? Go ahead, next slide, please. So we evaluate federal programs for compliance testing, and we noted 3 federal programs which were required to be audited, which are listed here. We had no reportable findings as a result of our testing in these programs. Next slide. And then lastly, we noted 2 state programs which are deemed to be major and required to be audited. Those were the State Public School Fund and CTE Program Support Fund. We also noted no reportable findings from our testing in these programs. You can flip through with that. That kind of covers our material, and I'd love to open it up to any questions.
Any questions, Ms. Muse?
So just for public clarification, since we did have an audit finding, when was the potential discrepancy originally noted by you guys?
So, kind of a multi-part answer. Titan was obviously implemented a year or so ago, but in the prior year, you weren't on full meal sales. So the amount of issue that could be caused, well, not being on full meal sales is pretty limited. So it was noted in the prior year, mentioned that it would need to be corrected or it may result in a larger issue. And then ultimately, when our field work started in late August, is kind of where the larger issue at that point was found, and kind of at that point it was a larger issue.
But wasn't there initial communication about a potential issue, like way back in March?
Yes.
And was our chief financial officer made aware of that potential issue by you back in March?
Yes.
She was back in March. How was she notified by you?
I believe there was an email sent where multiple individuals were on that communication.
I don't think that there were multiple people on that communication, but has the issue been corrected, and have you went back through to see if it has been corrected?
We haven't gone through and looked at the fiscal year 2024 results yet. The correcting entries have been made and proposed to correct the balances, obviously, because we're presenting audited financial statements. We have not audited the corrective action, and we won't audit that effectively until the future, the next year's audit. My understanding, I'll comment there, my understanding from discussion with the school nutrition team and the finance team, I agree with all the recommended responses and whatnot. We obviously have not seen numbers to paper to see if that's actually been corrected.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Any other board members? All right. Thank you, sir. All right, the next thing on our agenda is I would entertain a motion to approve the board meeting minutes for the following meeting dates: September 1st, 2023 for an appeal hearing, October 2nd, 2023 special called meeting minutes, October 17th, 2023 work session, and October 19th, 2023.
So move.
Second.
All right, it's been moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please let it be known by the raising of your right hand. And motion passes. Thank you. I would also entertain a motion to approve closed session meeting minutes for October 17th, 2023 and October 19th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please let it be known by the raising of your right hand. And motion passes. Thank you. That brings us to our consent agenda. I would ask if there be any items to be removed from the consent agenda. All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved in second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please let it be known by the raising of your right hand. And motion passes. All right, that brings us to Chairman's report, and at this time, I would open the floor for any board member to discuss items heard during public input. All right, we'll begin with Ms. Muse.
So I want to touch on the Intercultural Development Research Association. That was an initiative from a previous superintendent. Since Dr. Miller has been here, and that company is also a nonprofit, is my understanding, and there was no fees involved with that. Once the previous superintendent left and Dr. Miller took over as superintendent, nothing else happened with that company. I was on the board. We've never received a report from them because everything was just stopped. So there was nothing else that was done. It was initiated and it was never completed because the superintendent left. We had a new superintendent and we just didn't go down that road. So I guess the reason maybe if a public information request was put in for that, the reason nothing was received is because we didn't have anything to give because it was something that wasn't, there was no contract, there was nothing that was continued with it. Does that make sense?
All right, Ms. Stacy?
And I will just clarify, I did clarify that no actual public records request was made, so I don't think that actually occurred. But in any event, yeah, I think you've addressed that. So a lot of different things were mentioned during public input, but I will just speak to a little bit of what was done today in the policies that we just adopted on our consent agenda, many of which were the result of changes made in the Parents' Bill of Rights, Senate Bill 49. Many of the changes adopted today take effect in December by state law, and some of those changes were necessary in part to address some of the issues that were raised in the resolutions you all, the public, brought to the board this evening. So to some extent, those issues have already been addressed, and I would encourage members of the public to refer specifically to Policy 3540 on the Comprehensive Health Education Program, which specifically speaks to these issues of gender identity in the curriculum, and also to policies 6120 and 7300. So to some extent, I believe those policy changes already have been made ahead of the effective date of the state law and get us a long way toward answering some of the issues that you've addressed there. I think with regard to the climate change issue, one of the subjects that we discussed, I believe, at last month's meeting is that the Department of Public Instruction has recently altered the science standards, and one of the big changes to the science standards is the inclusion of the scientific method again in our science standards. So amazingly, that had been removed from the science standards. It is now back in the science standards, and I think that the inclusion of the scientific method would certainly lead to discussion of how and when we arrive at settled science. So I think that should actually address that concern to some extent. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Any others? Are there any bin items tonight from board members? All right, no bin items. Moving right along, celebrations from my board members. We'll begin with Ms. Muse.
These guys, right here. Thank you guys so much for coming out here tonight. Thank you for fulfilling your class assignment. Thank you for the conversations that you have had with us this evening. You guys are strong, bright, intelligent students, and Craven County is better for having you as citizens. And so I'm just really glad that you guys are here. And I've enjoyed talking to those of you that I have, and I look forward to talking to the ones I haven't gotten the chance to talk to this evening. So thank you guys for coming here tonight.
All right.
Okay, yeah, so again, I want to thank all the students for being here. I know it was probably required, but we appreciate you anyway. And if anybody else needs their paper signed, bring it up here and we'll be happy to vouch for you. I just want to celebrate our School Boards Association convention. I think we had a very successful couple of days there. Learned a lot about a lot of different things and got a lot of great ideas, and I think that was terrific. And of course, I guess the game has started, right? Because it will in just a second, so go Bears.
All right.
That's it.
You're
I
good.
have something.
Yes, ma'am.
I came to the art show that was here this week, and if you guys walk around the loop, we have some really talented artists in Craven County. Now, I am going to say, it was a little crowded, and last year having it at the History Center was a little more, it was a little more, well, in the spring, it was a little more spacious. And so you had to scooch by to make the loop. Or may I recommend like a traffic sign because everybody was going different ways. But before you guys leave tonight, take a loop around the building and see some of our artwork that our students have done, okay?
Yes, ma'am. And I'm just going to echo what they've already said. Our students being here, it was great, and having conversations and just getting to talk tonight. And then reiterate, we did have a good school board association. I wish Mr. Ipot was here tonight. He received several awards on behalf of Craven County and his work and dedication in board work. But Lord willing, maybe we can get that next month. But we did have a great time and learning and meeting leaders from all across the state. So thankful for that.
I am just thankful for, I think we have a really solid staff. They are quick to respond a lot of times in helping us getting resolutions or getting information. And so I'm appreciative for all of their hard work and responsiveness. I think we have definitely been on a track of continuous improvement over this past year. And it encourages me to think that we're on the right track in getting things resolved. I'm also very appreciative to all of these students that showed up. Maybe one day we can show up in their class or something. And because most of the time we cover something with the schools that we help represent, I'm very excited that our wonderful tech department has been able to resolve communication issues at James W. Smith with our Wi-Fi calling. Which the majority of you do not live in the west end of this county and have no idea that like a cell phone doesn't work. And the fact that the administrators have the ability to actually like text and communicate now. I got text messages while we were in Greensboro at the board conference. Hey, we got Wi-Fi calling now. This is awesome. So it's funny to get those kind of
means so much.
Get a text message from the principal that couldn't communicate a couple of weeks ago during the school day. That was nice. So thanks, guys, for all your hard work.
Yes. Let's get Zeke.
I want to celebrate the 3 schools that I was able to go to last week that were celebrating Veterans Day. I went to Gerganis, Arthur Edwards, and Havelock Elementary. Gerganis did a little parade inside the school where they had the children line the hallways with posters and hats and flags, and the parents and families of the students there that are veterans walked the hall and gave fives and fist bumps and all that, and that was really neat. And then at Arthur Edwards, the second graders put on a concert for all the families, and that was really, at one point, there was a couple of tears in my eyes, and I was not the only one, because they were saluting and waving flags. It was really special. And then at Havelock Elementary, they did a bike and scooter parade outside in the parking lot, and they had the middle school cheerleaders from Havelock Middle School, the high school cheerleaders, the high school football team, the high school band, police department, fire department. I feel like I'm forgetting some other people that were there. But I mean, they just went all out, and they had the families, and it lasted almost maybe an hour, 2 hours, and the weather was beautiful, and it was just amazing. Like, the kids wore themselves out. It was so much fun, and I think I'm going to look forward to it every year. I don't know how they could top it, but I really look forward to it. And I think that it's just wonderful the way that we celebrate special moments like that, and I've seen other schools around the county on social media, the way that they've celebrated Veterans Day, and I think it's really special, and I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. All right, thank you. And before we leave from this section of our agenda, I would just say we, as a board, are very thankful for all of our educators, those here at Central Service, those that are in the buildings, those that are making a difference every day, putting in the hard work. And as we head into Thanksgiving, as we've kind of shared a little bit of what we're thankful for, that we would all take that time to slow down, be with family. We were talking about it's the little things that count, and to be thankful and to be grateful because we're truly blessed here. And so with that, our students, our teachers, our educators, the well-deserved break, and being able to be thankful and grateful, and as I like to say, an attitude of gratitude goes a long ways in life. So to everybody, well-deserved, and we'll take time to pause and slow down a little bit. Well-deserved. All right, the next thing on our agenda, if there are no other board members with any celebrations, I will call upon and ask Superintendent Dr. Miller to facilitate the Plus Delta evaluation of our meeting for tonight.
Seems like we just did this.
We did.
In thinking about tonight's meeting, what worked? What do we need to continue to be productive in your work?
I love having the students visit our general meeting.
What else worked? We need to continue.
I would kind of like to see them come to a work session, though, as a field trip, so they can see where we have
Y'all
to
gonna
have
get a
like all
job.
this discussion back and forth. I mean, if you really want to know how things work, you
Yeah.
need to kind of come to a work session.
That is true. It'd bore them to death, maybe.
What else worked? What pluses do we have?
Side note, just to explain to them, we've pretty much been here all day. We just took like a 3-hour break.
Any other pluses?
Our presentations, I mean, again, today, for our work session, I mean, we didn't have a whole lot of presentations tonight, but our presentations are stronger. Dr. Boutwell's crew, for our work session today, knocked it out of the park, digging through data, and I mean, essentially starting from scratch. I mean, that was a whole lot of work that they put in to get us the information that they needed. So, I mean, they just have a really good group back there.
Any other pluses?
It's really nice that Mr. IPOC drove Slam all the way up to Clayton to the ball game this evening. So, I mean, that was nice.
He does like to travel. He's always driving.
Any other pluses? In an effort to improve, it would even be better if, what deltas do we have? I'll take it.
All right, that's it.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the November 16th, 2023 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by the raising of your right hand. We are adjourned.
We never discussed getting our